Now, James says faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. One more time. Faith without works is dead. Okay, so what does that mean? So, you face a situation this afternoon. You face a situation that is larger than you, seemingly more powerful than you, seemingly, I don't know how this is going to be resolved. That would be an opportunity to call on a resource that God has created, not for himself, not for heaven. There was a time there needed to be someone thrown out of heaven. There's no indication the angels, through Satan, Lucifer, and the third of angels, we're under the impression God the Father just cast them out. I don't know what he said. I have no idea. We're not given that insight. But there are so many times that the Scripture reveals God sent an angel or a host of angels, what one angel could do. They are host resources that have been made available. So it would be a great time for this to utilize the resource if God has created them to be of service to the heirs of salvation. In that sense, they're a servant. In that sense, not in the sense, oh, they're a servant, I'm over them, I'm king, and so on. No, they have been sent by God to serve you in God's purposes and so on. One of them is to see strongholds broken and cast down. One of them is to see when oppression has, or storms have arisen against you as Jesus rebuked them and so on. It's a great time. Faith without works is dead. Meaning, understanding, biblical understanding that you have, without applying it, does you no good. Can you give me an example? Yes. Since 2003, Faye and I, every week, we give an offering to Israel. We give an offering to missions. We give an offering to New Covenant. If we're on vacation and we miss a week, then we'll double it. There are occasions that we will give that offering to another place, another situation. That's very, very rare for us. I would say since 2003, maybe 5 times since 2003, we have not given a weekly offering to bless Israel and to invest in missions. That's since 2003. Here's what happened. Early in 2003, I was in my office and I got a phone call from a gal, some of you know, her name is Judy Schindlever. I got a call from Judy Schindlever, and she told me I'm in the prayer room. She was one of the prayer leaders. This is not in the notes. I'm one of the prayer leaders out at Lionheart Ministries, and God has spoken to me, and I've seen a vision while I'm here, and I'm so excited about what I've seen. I just got to tell you about the things that I've seen in this vision. This was back in 2003. And can I come to your office? That was out in Maryville, near the airport is where that location was. Can I come? And I just got to come. I got to tell you, this is so important. Okay, Judy, you're welcome. Just, make an appointment. And so she came. I don't remember if it was that day, but it was the day after or the day after she came in. She said, Pastor Russ, I have something to tell you, that if I got down on my knees and begged you, would you please do this? If it would make a difference, I would do that. Judy, you don't have to get down on your knees. Just tell me. Just tell me. She said, well, I was doing my prayer session, and my prayer session was to pray for leaders in the city, Knoxville. I'm assuming she included the globe, the nation, or so on. This was back in 2003, so it wasn't revolving around at the election time. And that's what my topic was. But she said, while I was standing there for my session, which she was the leader of it, I suddenly saw a vision. I saw a vision of a church. She said it looked like New Covenant. I don't know if it was New Covenant, but it looked like it. And the chairs looked like the chairs at New Covenant. And the floor, the carpet looked like the kind of carpet that we have. And people were passing an offering plate, and they were receiving an offering for Israel, to bless Israel. And she said, you know, the Bible does say, if you will bless Israel, God said to Abraham in Genesis 12, if you are blessed, in essence, and if people bless you, I will bless them. If people curse you, I will curse them. And she said, you're aware of that? I said, yes, Judy, I know. Well, she said, I was so impressed by the Lord that you are to take weekly offerings for the rest of your life to bless Israel. Now, faith without works is what? Dead. Revelations without acting on them, it's dead. Commands from God without obeying them results in death. And I mean by that, what God intended to be present and to be alive, it doesn't take place. And so in that sense, it's empty, it's void, it's gone, it's dead, so to speak. I said, wow. Judy, when someone comes and gives you something like that, you know, the Bible says out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. It's completely biblical. It's completely healthy. It's completely appropriate for you to say, wow, okay, I'm willing to put that before the Lord. I'm willing to ask Him, Lord, would you confirm that to me? And in such a way that it's a pure confirmation, that it's not somebody who was there with Judy at the meeting and heard Judy say those things, and that they're saying to me, I just want to confirm what Judy said, that yes, I was impressed by God, that really is what God was saying, and you ought to do that. And I think that that's not evil, it's not wicked, it's not wrong, it's not bad, but I do not regard in my own self that as a pure confirmation. I mean by that a confirmation, nobody knows anything about it, don't know what talking about. God just said something to him. And so I said, I'm willing for God to reveal it to me. I've got to take it before the church board and see, because it's not really my decision. And so I did. I took it before the church board, and what we decided was, for the rest of our lives, what I decided, God, you're going to have to confirm this for the rest of my life, to weekly give an offering to bless Israel. I know that you've given promises, and so the board said, we will do this for the remainder of this year. That was in the late in winter, early in the spring when Judy came, of 2003. So we'll continue to receive an offering every Sunday for the rest of this year. That's what that wooden church is that's on the communion table. All the money that's put in that goes into the portion of our offering that we give to Israel. We give it to Russian-speaking churches to help them buy buildings, refurbish buildings, help them reach out to people in Israel, Russian-speaking, born Russian, though they were born in Russia. We're just helping them because we've been to Israel enough and Russia enough to know they really need resources. So the board decided back in 2003, we will take the offering for the rest of this year, meaning every Sunday we'll make an opportunity for offerings to be given. And so for the rest of this year. But beyond that, God is going to have to confirm it. I was real content with that. I have people tell me things. It's not uncommon for people to share with me things they believe the Lord has said and that they want me to do. And what you'll hear is, okay, God will have to confirm that to me. So if you can be at peace, I've heard you. I'm keeping that sort of, I may say, in my active file, but God's going to have to bring 2 or 3 witnesses. And if it's a big thing that requires a lot of me, then He'll either have to give me such a mammoth confirmation, or He'll have to give me 2 or 3 what I would call, not mammoth, but clear, pure confirmations. So we did. Little did I know that in 6 weeks from that time, I would get one of the most outstanding, astonishing confirmations I have ever gotten in my life. I've gotten a handful, 5, 10 in my lifetime, my 75 years. I've gotten 5, 10, what I would call astounding confirmations. I've gotten many that I wouldn't put in that category. This was one of them. Little did I know, I was totally unprepared for how God was going to confirm to me that offerings to Israel, that God would bless those who blessed Israel. Totally unprepared for it. We had scheduled a trip to the Chukotka of Russia. If you look at a Russia map, or if I'm going to turn around and I'm going to say, if there's a Russia map on the screen, and the upper right-hand corner is the administrative district of Chukotka, and it's about 40 miles away from Alaska, meaning that's the far east of Russia in the map that you sort of are visualizing in your mind, and the Chukotka is in the upper right-hand corner. As I said, 45 miles from Alaska at that point. And we had gotten report, we had tried for several years to go to the Chukotka, because we were in the process of going, we thought, to every single state in Russia. They are not called states, they're called administrative districts, most of them. They have several other names. We'll just leave it there. Administrative districts. And we tried several years to go, and we discovered things about the Chukotka, that it was one of, if not the poorest district in all of Russia. They had a huge population. This is the size of Texas. How big are you talking about, Russ? The Chukotka is approximately the size of Texas. And they had 150,000 people in their heyday. And they had gone through famine in 1997, 98, 99, 2000. They had gone through a time of famine, and they had lost 2/3 of the population of the Chukotka. The whole thing, the size of Texas, it's permafrost. It's permafrost. It's very difficult to build on. So the ground in most places in the Chukotka is frozen all year long. Very, very, very cold, very primitive. We've been going to Russia since 1996, and we saw a lot of the poverty that was in Russia. This was before things really broke loose for them. 96, 97, we saw a lot of impoverished areas, and we just imagined, boy, when we get to the Chukotka, and we tried for several years to go there, when we get there, I think we're going to see the worst poverty we have ever seen, and we've seen it. I saw lines of people early in going in 96 in Russia. This was before things really broke loose for them. I saw a line of people, maybe have 200 people long, one person deep, so there was one person standing next to one person, standing next to one person, and this one person may have 2 loaves of bread in their hands, and the person next to him may have had a fish, and the person next to him may have had a small section of cheese. And that was the grocery store, meaning this long line of 200 people, each person having 1 or 2 items that they were seeking to sell. Those were the grocery stores. It was unbelievable. I was expecting to see that. The years had gone. When we finally got permission to go, it was 2003. 2002 is when we got the permission, and so we scheduled the trip for 2003. God knew. So He waited to give Judy Schinlever that vision in prayer early in 2003, while she was at the IHOP out at Maryville, Tennessee, the church Lionheart Ministries that Mike McClung, because he knew we had finally gotten an opening to go to the Chukotka, and he knew what we were going to discover there. So he waited before he told us that, because he knows everything. Timing is so important. So he was developing something in my life that I didn't know a thing about. And he was orchestrating the timing, which he's doing in your life. He does it all the time. So the time comes for us to take the trip. We had a good team, an interesting team, a good team to take to the Chukotka. And we boarded an airplane in Moscow. And remember, 6 weeks before that, I had said to God, okay, I'm going to do it. For this year, 2003, weekly, Faye and I, we're going to give a portion, a consistent weekly portion of our giving. We're going to, and if we've not had any income that week, we'll give an offering anyhow. And out of that offering, we'll give a portion to Israel. We'll give a portion to missions. But to do this for the rest of my life, you are going to have to confirm it. I'm not telling God what to do. I'm not mad. I'm not bossing God around. Don't worry, you're not going to boss God around. You just don't have to worry about that. It ain't going to happen, Captain. It's just not going to happen. But the Scripture does say, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. It's very biblical. So your heart, the intent of your heart, God, I'd like to follow this, but I only want to follow promptings that you really are giving me or you're confirming, and that when they said that, they said it because it was really coming from you. I really want to do that, Lord. So a confirmation 2 or 3, it's a really big item. So we boarded the airplane, and we were flying from Moscow to the Chukotka. So that's a long flight. I mean, a long flight. And we, 5, 6, 7 hours back then, and I had, you have to go to the restroom in that many hours. So I went up to the restroom, and there was a line, 2 or 3 men before me. And so I was standing in line, minding my own business. And I understood their language. I expected everybody to speak Russian, and they were speaking, I understood them clearly. It was a little bit of a different accent. Actually, they were Canadians, but they were speaking English. And so I just, hey, where are you guys from? Well, we're from Canada. Really? And you're on your way to the Chukotka? Yes, we are. Might as well just ask them what they're doing there. You understand? It's not every day every person on the globe is flying from Moscow to the Chukotka, one of the most impoverished places on the earth, especially in Russia. And I said, you're going to Chukotka. Why are you going there? I said, well, we're building resource centers, we're building schools, we're building community centers. You are? Yeah, we're building them. We're building them using the technology and the training and the resources that we've developed in Canada for minus 70 below zero weather. So we're building gathering areas, we're building gymnasiums, we're building schools. Where are you doing this? We're doing this in Chukotka. The Chukotka. I thought that place was in terrible condition. Are you just building one? No, we're building many of them all over the Chukotka. They're small, so they're very small villages. There may only be 150 people in the village, and so we're building one of the. You're building this thing that'll stand minus 70 degrees and has all the resources? And it was like my mind was saying, this does not compute. Not one, not two. They were building many of them, and they were building them all over the Chukotka. Wow. Okay. So I talked with some of the team members, and just, boy, this was really strange. I don't know what's going on. We land finally, and the airport is across the bay from the town, Anadyr, the capital of the Chukotka, Anadyr or Anadyr, and it's across the bay. So the plane landed, and we boarded an ex-military helicopter, big helicopter, and it was rusted through on the bottom, so there were big holes in the floor. So we were warned where we put our feet, and that was kind of what I was expecting. And so we flew over the bay, and we're seeing water under our feet, and we're thinking, oh, God, would you help us make it to the other side? Forgot all about the buildings, and the Canadians at that point in time was very self-focused of help us make it alive to the other side. So we get to the other side, and the helicopter lands and opens the door, and we step out, and it's like, we're in the wrong place. The buildings were beautiful. They were painted with festive colors. Festive for me. Yellows, greens, light greens, pretty colors, blues, with sidewalks. There were concrete sidewalks. And as we were going to the church where we were going to be ministering at for several days, we passed a building, and the guy said, oh, that's our new supermarket. And we looked, and it looked like Kroger or Food City or something. And we had people who went in, and they said, we were able to buy American ice cream in that store. And we were expecting people standing on the street with one or two items in their hand. And it was like, that's a grocery store like back in Knoxville. And I said, what is it doing in Anadyr, in the Chukotka? We go to the church. We have the first service. I was traveling with a man by the name of Gintis who was on our team. And we were staying with the pastor and his wife in their flat, in their apartment house. And on the way, I just couldn't contain myself. I said, I noticed that the buildings, they're really pretty, and there's all kinds of work going on in the streets, and there are concrete sidewalks, and your grocery store, what is going on? We've heard that Anadyr, that the Chukotka has been in a time of famine, and it was so bad that the people on the coasts were eating seagulls. You could find it written in the literature. And we were told, you've been told that everything almost tastes like chicken. We've been told seagulls don't taste like chicken. They're horrible. And they didn't have anything else to do, so they were eating seagulls. And what happened? And he said, I know. I know exactly what happened, because I've been a part of it. Okay, would you tell me? Now remember, 6 weeks ago, I said, Lord, would you give me a confirmation that people who bless Israel, you will bless them. If people curse Israel, you will curse them. I had no idea God would take me to the Chukotka administrative district of Russia to let me see. You want to see an example? I'll show you an example. I think that's what God said. Gabriel says he stands before God, awaiting his instructions. I stand in the presence of the Lord. I think the Lord said, you don't have to believe this part, I think the Lord said to Gabriel, he wants a confirmation, I'll give him one. So as we were talking to the pastor, he said 2 years before, 1998, 2 years before, there were 2 retired school teachers in England. I called one of them in verifying the story. It's okay, God doesn't mind if you verify stories. I called one of them eventually. And God laid on their heart to come to the Chukotka and to go to the Arctic Circle area, the highest area in the Chukotka. It's in the Arctic Circle, and to bring a message to the church or any of the churches that would let you come. And the message that God said, here's the message I want you to bring. If you will bless Israel, I will bless you. Now, I'm talking about Russia. I'm talking about in 1998. And so these 2, Zilla, one of their names was Zilla and Priscilla. Zilla and Priscilla. And they went, and for a year, they visited 2 or 3 churches. They're very small, real small. And they said we would bring the message that we felt like God had for us. And after doing that for a year, the next year when we went back, we felt like we had to find a pastor from the Chukotka who would take the message and go to all the churches in the Chukotka. That's a bunch of real little ones that would be very difficult to get to. And so they did. They searched out a pastor in the Chukotka district, and it was the guy that we were at his church, who we then, Gintis and I, were in his home, sitting in his living room, and he's the one telling us the story. Priscilla and Zilla, they contacted me and asked if I would undertake the responsibility of going to all the churches in the district. And he said it's taken me 2 years to do that, and to present the message of receiving offerings to help the Jews in the Chukotka region who want to return, make aliyah, want to return to Israel, that you would take offerings. These are people who are famished. They're eating seagulls. The population of the district has dropped from 150,000 to 50,000 people. There are very few jobs. They're incredibly poor. And God sends someone to say, would you take an offering to bless Israel? It would be so easy to say, I need someone to take an offering to bless me or bless us or bless our church. Take an offering to bless Israel. So he said, I did. I went to every church that would receive me, and he said, everyone took an offering to bless the Jews in the Chukotka, to help them gather the resources so they could move to Israel. He said, you'd be surprised. They were very generous. And for some of those churches, the amount of money they gave, it was staggering to me. How could they give that much? You know, what would that much be? Maybe $10 from the whole congregation. And you think, $10, that's nothing. Yeah, if you're impoverished and you're eating seagulls and you don't have work and your district is in terrible condition and you live in permafrost, $10 from a whole small congregation, that you need every penny. That's a huge amount of money. I'm glad God's watching. He keeps track of everybody's offering all the time. He knows exactly what everybody's given. He knows what everybody in the church is given, in every church in the globe, in every nation in the globe. He's everywhere at the same time. He's keeping track of that. So he said, we raised so much money that all the people who were Jews in our district who wanted to go to Israel, we had raised enough money that we gave them the money, they could fly to Israel, and we had enough that we had $2,000 or $3,000 left over. That Magadan is the administrative district right next to them, below them, also very impoverished, big prisons, what you think of as Soviet prisons, really, really bad. They were in Magadan. I was in some of them as a tourist. I was in some of them as a tourist. Really? What happened? Where did the paint come from? It wasn't Kroger. I don't know what the name of it was. Where did the Kroger come from? He said, we had an election for governor in 2000, and the second wealthiest man in all of Russia, Roman Abramovich. If you were just going to guess what nationality Roman Abramovich was, would you think he was Jew or Gentile? Probably Jew. Roman Abramovich, Jewish, born in Russia, one of the oligarchs, one of the second, at that time we were told he was the second richest man in all of Russia. Did he make his money legally? Probably not. Probably not. And he ran for governor of the Chukotka, and he was elected. And he brought himself and all his money. He gave 3 huge duffel bags of food to every single person in the district. He was the one who was bringing those Canadian schools. He was the one who brought the supermarket. He was the one who was paving and putting concrete sidewalks and painting buildings. He was the one who started doing excavation for precious metals and resources. He was the one that, as a result of it, they discovered gold mines in the Chukotka. They discovered silver mines. They started digging for natural gas, and they discovered the largest, the second largest, the purest reserve of natural gas in all of Russia. They discovered off the coast of the Chukotka. And I wrote an article saying they were eating seagulls while sitting on top of gold and silver and gas, natural gas. He took all the children of that 50,000 people at that time. There was about 7,000 kids. He took the 7,000 kids in a number of different trips, loaded them onto planes, flew them all the way across Russia. So that's the long ways. That would be like Maine down to Southern California, that kind of trip, but much longer than that, double that distance. If you go from Chukotka down to the Black Sea, to the Ukraine area of the Black Sea, he took them down there to receive free dental care and to have a vacation time, and then paid all the expenses, and then flew all those kids back. Untold blessing. Where did that come from? I'm sitting there listening to this story. It's like, is this really happening? Am I in a dream somewhere? Is this really, really going on? I asked God to give me a confirmation that blessing Israel will result, if you honor, I'm talking about your motives, your intent, it's godly, it's righteous, or it's in the development and being righteous. I'm not talking about it's pure in every element. You're developing, you're growing in this area, and this is impossible. When we got back home, I did research. I did as much research as I could on that area. I found so many articles that talked about what is going on in the Chukotka. Because I heard what the pastor said, that we were in his home. It was then that I found out through him, okay, who are the people, who are the gals, the former school teachers in England? And Zilla was the one that I was able to contact. She sent me, I have a copy of her notes that they preached as they came back in 98, 97, 98, 99, as they came. And it was like, this is unbelievable. Faith without works is dead. So Faye and I, and on occasion, maybe once every 2 years, maybe once every 3 years, I try and tell the story. Faye and I, since then, since 2003, is we weekly give an offering to Israel. The church collects it up. There's others who give. Every penny, dime, nickel, quarter, dollar that goes in that wooden church over there, there's some slots in the top, that goes to, we add that up together and we give it to a Russian-speaking church. Actually, that pastor has been here in Haifa, the northern area of Israel. There are many stories associated with this. Faith without works is dead. If God created a resource that He intended to be for the heirs of salvation, not for heaven. Heaven doesn't need an army to protect heaven. We as a nation need an army to protect our country. Heaven doesn't need an army to protect heaven. He made them for you, for us. Hebrews chapter 1. To be of service to those who are heirs of salvation. So if He has done that and you run into an area that's bigger than you, can't you just call out to God? Of course you can. Can't you just call out to Jesus? Yes, you can. But if we're in a point in time in history when God is breathing understanding and awakening to another area of resources that are available, that they don't supersede. Jesus said to Peter, when Peter cut off the guy's ear, Malchus was the name of Caiaphas' servant, when they came to take Jesus, Peter took out his sword, cut off his ear. Jesus turned to Peter and said, Peter, I could ask the Father and to send a legion of angels to help me. In essence, if I wanted to, I could do that. Jesus Himself said that was a resource that was available to Him. So in your journey, I encourage you, Faye and I encourage you. I'm not talking about money that, is there an offering thing back there? So what I want to do is take an offering, give you an opportunity to get started. This is, again, not for New Covenant. It doesn't come to us. It goes exclusively. And so I'm going to ask Steve when the service is over, if you could put it, or someone, Betty or someone, could put it in that bank, whatever is in the offering. So the intention of this is to bless Israel, to bless the Russian-speaking churches in Israel. There's one particularly in Haifa that we are giving to. So in Jesus' name.